Добрый вечер, или уже, наверное, доброй ночи. Всех
Good night.
поприветствовать,
I'd like to
уважаемые
welcome
дамы и господа,
all of you, ladies and
уважаемые
gentlemen,
коллеги.
dear colleagues,
И хочу
and I would
еще раз
like once
поздравить
again
всех вас
to
с праздником
congratulate you
Великой
on the
Победы.
Great
Поблагодарить
Victory
наших
holiday. I'd
друзей,
like to thank all
зарубежных
our
партнеров,
friends and
которые
international
в эти дни были
partners
вместе с нами в
that
Москве
have been
на
with us
юбилейных
during those
торжествах,
days
чтобы
to
поклониться
commemorate the
поколению
anniversary,
победителей.
to bend knee to the
Мы чтим
generation of
всех,
the
кто внес
victory.
свой вклад
We
в
honor
общую
everybody
победу
who
над
contributed to the
нацизмом. А это
common
и
victory
наши
over Nazism,
союзники по
including
антигитлеровской
our
коалиции,
anti-Hitler coalition
и воины
allies
Китая,
and
и
the warriors
участники
of China
антифашистского
and the
сопротивления в
participants of the
Европе,
anti-fascist
бойцы
resistance movement in
народно-освободительных
Europe,
движений в
the
Африке, в Азиатско-Тихоокеанском
fighters
регионе,
from the People's
добровольцы из
Liberation
стран
movements in
Латинской
Africa
Америки.
and
С нашими
APR
друзьями
and
и
Latin America,
единомышленниками
with our friends
нас
and
объединяет
like-minded
общая память
peoples.
и
We
уважение к
share the
истории,
same
к подвигу
memories and
подлинных
respect
героев,
paid
которые
for the
сражались за
feat of the
свободу.
true
И,
heroes
конечно,
who
наша
fought for the victory.
ответственность за
And
будущее,
definitely
за построение более
it's our
справедливого
responsibility for
и
future, for
безопасного
building a
мира.
better, safer and
Именно
a more
вопросы,
just
от
world.
которых прямо зависит
The
стабильное,
issues
устойчивое
that
развитие всего
determine the
мирового
stable
сообщества в
and
Евразии и в других
sustainable
регионах
development of
мира,
the global
были в
community,
центре
including
состоявшихся
Eurasia and other
двусторонних и
regions of the
многосторонних
world,
встреч. Они,
were
конечно
high on
же,
the agenda of the bilateral and
проходили в
multilateral
особой,
meetings that we have had.
торжественной,
They were held
праздничной
in a
атмосфере, но при
festive
этом были
environment, special
исключительно
environment, but
насыщенными
they
и
were quite
содержательными,
fruitful and meaningful,
наполнены
filled
темами политической,
with
экономической
political
и
and economic
гуманитарной
and
повестки.
humanitarian
Подводя итоги, я
issues.
хотел бы
Taking stock,
это сейчас и
and I
сделать.
really would like to do
Скажу,
this
что за 4
now,
дня с
I
7
want to tell you
по
that
10
over
мая
those
у
4 days
нас
from May 7
состоялись
to May
мероприятия
10th,
официальных визитов лидеров
we have
трех
had
иностранных
official
государств:
visits of 3
Китайской Народной
leaders of
Республики,
international foreign
Венесуэльской
states,
Боливарианской
the People's
Республики
Republic of
и
China,
Социалистической
Venezuelan
Республики
Republic,
Вьетнам.
and the
Кроме
Socialist
того,
Republic of
прошло
Vietnam.
20 двусторонних
We had
встреч с главами
20
стран
bilateral
СНГ,
meetings with heads
Азии,
of state
Африки,
from
Ближнего
CIS, Asia,
Востока,
Africa, Middle
Европы и
East, Europe,
Латинской
and
Америки.
Latin
Всего же в
America.
торжествах приняли
All in
участие
all,
27 глав
27
государств из
heads of
СНГ, Азии,
state
Африки,
from
Ближнего
CIS,
Востока,
Asia, Africa,
Европы,
Middle East,
Латинской
Europe, and
Америки, а
Latin
также около
America
10
participated, as
руководителей
well as
международных организаций.
around 10
Еще
heads of
6 стран
international
были
organizations.
представлены на
6
высоком
more
уровне.
countries were
Видим
represented
в
at
таком
a
широком
high
участии
level.
делегаций из
We believe that
зарубежных
this
стран
broad
и
representation of
международных организаций
international partners and
вдохновляющее
international
свидетельство
community
подлинной
and
консолидации
organizations
вокруг
is a
непрасходящих
testimony,
идей и
inspiring
ценностей
testimony of
нашей общей
consolidation
великой
around
победы.
the eternal
Признательны руководителям
ideals of
13
our
государств,
common great
которые направили
victory.
для участия
We are
в параде
grateful
на
to the
Красной
leaders of
площади
13
подразделения
countries
национальных
who
вооруженных сил.
sent their
Их марш
troops and
плечом к
armed
плечу
forces
с нашими
divisions
парадными
to
расчетами
participate in the parade. They
наполнил общий
marched
праздник
alongside
особой
our
энергетикой, духом
troops, which
боевого
filled
братства,
this
закаленного в годы
common
сражений.
holiday of ours
Рад был лично
with the
поблагодарить
spirit of
военачальников
combat
Корейской народной
brotherhood
армии,
in arms.
передать
And I
самые
was
теплые слова
glad
солдатам
to
и
thank the
командирам подразделений
commanders of the
спецназа
Korean
Корейской
People's Army and
Народно-Демократической
give my best
Республики,
regards to
которые вместе с
the
нашими
special
бойцами
troops
профессионально, хочу это
of the
подчеркнуть,
Korean
добросовестно выполняли задачи
Democratic
при
Republic of
освобождении
Korea
пограничных районов
troops
Курской области
who
от формирования Киевского режима.
helped us in good faith to
Подчеркнуть,
liberate
проявили
the
мужество и
border
героизм.
areas of the Kursk region
Действуя, еще раз это хочу
from the
сказать,
occupation of the Kiev
в высшей
regime. They
степени
demonstrated
профессионально,
courage
показали
and heroism,
хорошую,
and they were
выученную
highly
работу.
professional,
И, конечно же, для всех
showing a
лидеров
great
государств
deal
было
of
особой честью
mastery
приветствовать на трибунах главных
and
героев
preparedness.
юбилея
And
Победы,
definitely,
ветеранов
it was a
Второй
privilege
мировой
for all the
войны
leaders to
из
welcome
России,
the main
из
heroes of the victory.
Израиля,
I mean, the
Армении,
veterans
Монголии.
of the Second World War
Отмечу,
from
что
Russia,
несмотря
Israel,
на
Armenia,
угрозы,
Mongolia.
шантаж и
I'd like to
чинимые
note that
препятствия,
despite
вплоть
the
до перекрытия
threats and
воздушного
blackmails
пространства в
and
Москву,
handicaps and
приехали и лидеры
hindrances,
некоторых
including
европейских стран:
blocking
Сербии,
our
Словакии,
ways,
Боснии и
some of the
Герцеговины.
leaders of European countries
Повторю,
have arrived from Serbia,
понимаем, с каким
Slovakia, Bosnia and
массированным
Herzegovina,
давлением
and
они
others. We
сталкивались, и потому
know
искренне ценим их
how hard they were pressed. So this is why we really sincerely appreciate their courage and their adamant position and their decision to pay homage together with us to the heroes of the Second World War, the Great Patriotic War, who fought for their homeland and who fought to liberate and rid the entire humanity of the brown plague without any overstatement. Millions of Europeans and the leaders of countries that pursue sovereign policies remember that. That instills optimism and hope that sooner or later, including building upon the lessons of history and the sentiment of their peoples, we will start moving towards restoring constructive relations with these countries of Europe, including those who today still stick to the anti-Russian rhetoric and blatantly aggressive action against us, and they have been trying, we have seen that in these days, they've tried to speak in a loutish manner with us using the language of ultimatums. And a true example of equal and equitable relations in the 21st century is our partnership and strategic interaction with the People's Republic of China. The Chinese president was the main guest of the commemorative events dedicated to the 80th anniversary of victory. We have had exclusively fruitful talks and we have adopted two statements on the level of heads of state, and we have inked interagency and intergovernmental agreements on energy, trade, finance, science, and many other domains. As I have said, we have decided that my reciprocal visit will take place in September to mark the 80th anniversary of victory over the militaries of Japan. It's quite symbolic and natural that the main commemorative events dedicated to the 80th anniversary since the end of the World War will be held in Moscow and Beijing, the capitals of the countries whose peoples went through trials and tribulations and paid the highest price in the name of our common victory. Dear colleagues, I think that it's obvious for everybody that over the talks in Moscow and the meetings in Moscow, we also touched upon the Ukrainian conflict settlement, and we are thankful to all our guests, our friends, for the attention they have been paying to this conflict and for the efforts pursued and exerted by them to finalize this conflict. So I believe in this respect to stop on these topics separately. In this respect, I'd like to say that it's well known that Russia previously set forth initiatives to cease fire, but those initiatives were sabotaged by the Ukrainian side. So, for example, the Kiev regime blatantly violated the 30 days moratorium on energy facilities from the 18th of March to the 17th of April, and that moratorium was proclaimed in conformity with the accord reached by President Donald Trump and myself, and the Easter ceasefire initiated by Russia was violated by them either. There were around 5,000 violations on the part of the Ukrainians. Still, during the celebration of the victory day, we believe this to be a sacred holiday. Like 27 million lives were claimed. So, and for this sacred holiday, we also proclaimed a third ceasefire. And we conveyed to our Western colleagues who, I believe, are in sincere search of ways to settle that. So we conveyed our position to them on the Ukrainian ceasefire on the victory day, that we did not rule out an extension of the timeline of the ceasefire, having analyzed what would happen during these several days and upon judging by the response and the reaction of the Kiev regime. So, what are we observing? What the outcomes are? The Kiev authorities, as you can see by yourselves, did not respond in any way to our proposal to cease the fire. Moreover, after we put forward our proposal, and that happened on the 5th of May this year, the Kiev authorities, in the night from 6th into 7th, perpetrated massive attacks with 524 UAVs and some of the missiles, Western-made missiles, and also around 45 unmanned vessels in the Black Sea were applied. Over those 3 days of the ceasefire that we proclaimed, 8th, 9th and 10th, things that you saw accounts of in the media happened, and that was clear from your reports also. 5 targeted purposeful attempts to attack the state border of the Russian Federation in the Kursk region and in the juncture with the Belgorod region, segments of the border on the days of the ceasefire that we proclaimed. Moreover, in other segments, 36 attacks were perpetrated. And all those attacks, including attempts to enter the soil of Russia in the Kursk and Belgorod regions, were repelled. Moreover, our military professionals believe that they had no military significance, and they were based on political grounds only, and the casualties of the adversary were huge. As a result, as I have said, the Kiev authorities not only turned down our ceasefire proposal, but also tried to intimidate the leaders of the countries that planned to attend the festive events in Moscow. You know, dear colleagues, when I met with colleagues in Moscow, it dawned on me, it occurred to me, I'll share this thought with me. Well, I just figured, whom were they trying to intimidate? To mark and commemorate the victory over Nazi Germany. The point is that those who came to us are not the official position leaders. These are spiritual and character leaders and sentiment leaders, and they're leaders in terms of upholding their own opinions. And who tried to intimidate them? Who would snap the salute to the former SS soldiers and make national heroes out of those who were the Nazi collaborators in the Second World War times? Well, I think this is an attempt with undue means, unfit means, and those who try to commit that are not up to the mark to their efforts. I repeat, on several occasions, on many occasions, we proposed to cease fire and never declined to dialogue with the Ukrainian party. Let me also remind you that it wasn't us who suspended or stopped talks in 2022. It was the Ukrainian side. And in this respect, against all odds, we proposed to the Kiev authorities to resume the talks they stopped and terminated in April 2022. I'm referring to direct talks without any preconditions, and we propose to start immediately on next Thursday, on the 15th of May, in Istanbul, the venue that held them before. Well, it is well known that the Turkish colleagues organized, proposed their services to organize such talks, and President Erdogan did a lot to organize those talks in the past. As a result of those talks back then, a draft of joint agreement was prepared and initialed by the head of the Kiev negotiating teams, but upon the behest of the West, it was thrown into the litter bin. Tomorrow, a phone conversation is planned with the Turkish President Erdogan, and I would ask him to provide this opportunity to hold talks in Turkey. I really hope that he will confirm his desire to facilitate peace in Ukraine, where we are committed to holding serious talks with Ukraine in order to eliminate the root causes of the conflict, to arrive at a enduring, long-lasting peace in the long run, in a long historical run. I cannot rule out that during those talks we will be able to negotiate and come to terms over new ceasefires or truces, real ones that would be respected not only by Russia but the Ukrainian side, and would be a first step to a long-lasting, enduring peace, not a prologue to continuing the armed conflict after re-equipping and rearming and digging trenches and new defensive checkpoints. Who would want such peace? So our proposal is on the table. So now it's up to the Ukrainian authorities and their mentors and their supervisors to decide, and those are guided by their personal political ambitions, not the interests of their peoples. It seems they want to continue warfare against Russia with the hands of the Ukrainian Nazis. I repeat, Russia is ready for talks without any precondition. The hostilities are now ongoing. A war is waged, and we propose that the talks should be reinstated, the talks that were not stopped by us. Those who are peace seekers cannot but support that. And I'd like once again to express our gratitude for the mediation and brokerage to peacefully resolve the Ukrainian crisis by our international partners like China, Brazil, the countries of Africa and the Middle East, and of late, the new administration of the United States of America. In closing, I would once again like to thank everybody who shared those festive events with us dedicated to the 80th anniversary of victory over the Nazism, the spirit of solidarity and accord that united us in Moscow during these days will help us build fruitful cooperation and partnerships for the sake of progress, security and peace. And seizing this opportunity, I'd also like to note the huge part played by the media, leading international outlets and TV channels and press members who covered the many hours of these meetings and events, and they did their utmost so that people worldwide could feel the unique atmosphere of these festive days. And I also thank you for this encounter, quite a late one, and everybody's tired, definitely. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And actually, it is so late. It's around 2:00 a.m. Moscow time. So I let you go and rest. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Goodbye.